And no song today, but welcome
What happened to the song?
to Old School, New School.
Or maybe you want to sing the national anthem, or maybe you just want to
Oh,
sit.
we're in the right position. Yeah, since we're both sitting.
I'll be glad to stand if you want to sing the national anthem, Noah.
No song today. Because I don't feel like pulling it up and playing it. So maybe we'll add it in post.
All right, let me just give you something to start off, which you didn't see coming, but you can think about this.
Okay.
Since when, on a telephone,
Yeah.
what we used to call, the hash mark
Yeah.
used to be called a pound sign.
Okay.
When did that become a hashtag? How come the pound sign is now a hashtag?
It's still called a pound, I think.
Well, old school
In
is a pound sign.
in conference calls,
Yeah, but,
hit pound after you say your name.
okay, so conference calls are old school, and new school is.
By the way,
hashtag.
say your name. We didn't even introduce you. I'm Noah Savage. You're Rick Wolf.
That is correct.
You're coming in real hot with a lot of rants
I'm
about
telling you, man,
hashtags.
I am all over you today, especially because you have no song. So
Well, hashtag is, that's that this can trend. Eventually we're going to have old school, new school trending on Twitter, and then we're going to just really be rolling in the dough.
I got it. I understand. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about your favorite sport, basketball.
Yeah, the most exciting NBA offseason in recent memory, and more developments.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
Suppose, hypothetically, I said to you, Noah, we've had a great year, but I don't want to be on your team anymore.
Right.
I want you to trade me.
This would be, all right, so if we're going to compare it this way, let's say we got a nationally syndicated radio show.
Yeah.
We're rolling in the Bucks.
Yeah.
We win a, what's a radio award? An Emmy?
They were in all sorts of different. Yes, Emmys. Fine.
So we'd have to win the best show of the year because they won a championship together.
That is correct. And they went to the finals together.
They went to the finals 3 times, so 3 nominations, and we win an Emmy. And then you go, I actually don't want to do this with you anymore.
Because, honestly, everybody, when we walk down the street,
Yeah.
or we go on television or on radio, people say, hey, it's Noah Savage and the old guy.
Right. And
As the old guy, I'm getting tired of being the old guy. It should be Rick Wolf and Noah Savage, don't you think? And that's what's going on here with Kyrie and with LeBron.
I think that it's entering a dangerous time in America with this Kyrie situation, because now we're moving past people being selfish but acting like they're being unselfish to just blatant selfishness that is somehow accepted. Do you know what I mean? Like when you win the MVP and you go, well, this is really because of my teammates and this is because of my coach.
And now you say, I won the MVP because I am the MVP.
Me, yeah, that's why.
I basically carried the rest of the team on my shoulders.
Right. When you thank your teammates, you're basically saying, I actually did this. But there's a level of humility that's associated with it.
Well, thanks to your generation, those days are gone.
But explain, what does Kyrie say when he finally has an interview and they go, so you really just valued being the man more than winning? Isn't that what you just said?
Don't ask me. You're the guy. It's your generation that's doing this. I mean, for example, you just said, hey, Kyrie, why don't you have an interview with the media where somebody can ask you to your face, why are you doing this? Why are you just tired of being a second banana to LeBron James? I mean, by most accounts, LeBron's a pretty good guy. He's all about the team, says all the right things, and he is very talented. So why? Why don't you have a sit down and tell the rest of the world why you force this to happen?
Well, not only that, but Kyrie shoots more than LeBron. Kyrie's trusted with the ball late in the games. Kyrie's going one-on-one in Game 7 and hit the 3 that put them ahead in 2016. What more do you want? It's not like he even has to play second fiddle. That's what's so bizarre.
But again, when I think, knowing how these guys think these days, whenever the Cavaliers are introduced or promoted on a national telecast, it's, hey, tonight it's the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James.
Right.
There's no mention of anybody else.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I assume, and I don't know this, I assume that Kyrie and his posse have said to him, man, you're actually more of the team than LeBron is. Why aren't you getting your fair share of kudos?
And the other thing is that you look at when Kyrie looks at his own skills, and then he looks across at Steph Curry, and he goes, "Wait a second, I can shoot that well. I have that much handle. I'm the best one-on-one player in the game. All I need is more shine, and I'll be able to win the MVP."
So next year, when the Golden State and Cleveland meet in the finals,
Yeah.
do you really think that the Cavaliers, with their new point guard, are going to win over Steph Curry? I don't think so.
No, I don't think they will. But I think that maybe Kyrie goes, look, I got my championship. I'm 25. The camp Kyrie is saying, wait, this guy could actually be MVP. And there's a side note to that, which is that the MVP this last year should have been LeBron James. He's the best player. Everybody knows it. He does the most for his team. But there's a troubling trend where the MVP each year in the NBA is just whoever has the ball the most, whoever pounds it the most. The usage rate for these guys is unprecedented. When you look at Harden and you look at Westbrook, they have the ball the whole time. They don't give it up unless it's an assist for them. They're hogs. And Kyrie goes, I can be a hog too and win MVP.
Yeah, but what happens when he ends up in a couple of months, a couple of weeks, and he's with the Celtics, and the telecast now saying, hey, tonight it's the Boston Celtics, coached by Brad Stevens.
Yeah, well, it's
How come we so?
Brad Stevens, Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, suppose Hayward, the kid from Utah. So all of a sudden, you know, Hayward was a great tennis player in high school.
Yeah,
I mean, really was a great tennis player. Basketball was a side venture because he was only 5'10" when he was a senior in high school. But my point is, suppose Kyrie Irving doesn't get top billing there. What happens in his first get-together with Brad Stevens? And Stevens says to Kyrie, so what really happened with you in Cleveland? Why are you here with us as opposed to being with the Cavaliers? How does that conversation play out?
Or Brad Stevens goes, well, here on the Celtics, we actually like to move the ball. And we like to pass and cut a little bit.
Ooh, well, and Kyrie's going to say, well, those days are over. I get the ball, I bring it up, and I tell you, I'm going to shoot 40 times a game.
But let's put this
Like
in
a junior Carmelo Anthony.
Let's put this in context. When can you think of a team trading their best player to the rival that they just lost to
Well, first of all,
in their own conference?
Are you saying
when
that
you look at it from the from the Celtics point of view? Isaiah Thomas averaged 30 last year.
For the Celtics
He
point of view,
averaged 30, not 28, 30. And then they traded him away.
I don't understand that, except that, you said, I don't know what's going on. Isaiah Thomas is a brilliant player. A brilliant player.
Right.
Again, I will tell you this from my years of experience working in sports psychology and working with the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
That only about...
Oh, this is good. So tell us about a psychopath who is incredibly selfish. Make your point and then lead us to the person who thought too highly of themselves.
About 30%, just 30% of what really transpires behind the scenes with a major league team or NBA team or NFL team, only about a third of that stuff, actually the truth, actually finds its way into the media. By that point, it's sanitized and worn down, unless it's something that happened, in a public place. There was a public altercation or somebody was arrested. But for the most part, what takes place in the front office with the players and the players' agents and the friction between the players in the clubhouse and the locker room, the average media never hears about this because, quite frankly, the general managers and the president of the team knows that is not going to be in any way beneficial for ticket sales.
All right, I have so many questions.
So I'm just telling you, I don't know what happened, if anything happened, with Isaiah Thomas and the Celtics. We do know, obviously, there was friction between Kyrie Irving and LeBron, and so much so that the front office decided we cannot go into the season having two unhappy stars. We're going to have to trade the lesser of the two, meaning Kyrie. But I guarantee you, there is stuff that even the so-called guys, the inside reporters, inside track guys, they're not privy to any of this stuff because nobody's going to talk to them. Kyrie's not going to talk to him. Isaiah's not going to talk to him. Brad Stevens not going to talk to him. Nobody.
Well, if you look at from a Celtics point of view first, let's look at a Celtics point of view.
Okay.
Danny Ainge knows what the hell he's doing. During the draft, he managed
baseball player, brother.
He managed to get not only the player that he wanted in the draft, which is Tatum, but he also got another pick for the future.
Right.
He basically fleeced the Sixers out of their pick for the future and got who they wanted.
Yes.
So he knows what he's doing. Now, I forget if it was a tattoo or what, but Isaiah Thomas basically showed up wearing shoes or a tattoo that basically had a dump truck full of money and was like, this is what I want. Like, pay up. And the Celtics were like, we don't know if we can give a max deal to a guy who's 5 feet, wearing platform shoes that you probably wore in the 70s, okay? This guy is short. So they said, we have to take a once-in-a-generation talent of Kyrie Irving. And if I'm a betting man, I'm going to think that Danny Ainge knows what he's doing and that the Celtics, in the long run, got the better of the trade.
And as you know, it hasn't really been discussed openly, but Isaiah Thomas is, in fact, 3 years older than Kyrie.
Yeah.
So maybe
went to college a little bit longer.
We don't know what kind of physical health they're in. Again, that information is not privy to the public or the sports writers. There may be all sorts of other factors in this. As you say, Danny Ainge is a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to trade his best player unless he knows, yes, he's getting something back in return to quality, but more than that, there must be some sort of baggage that has not been discussed that was transpired in this deal. So we're taking your dirty laundry from Cleveland, but you're getting our dirty laundry in return. And
right.
I guarantee you, this is how these guys operate. Look, these are multimillionaire athletes. They really don't.
Yeah, but the baggage is pretty obvious with Kyrie, right? It's that he's selfish.
We don't. Yeah,
So if you're the type of guy who wants to leave LeBron, then you're the type of guy who's selfish. And I think Danny Ainge says we have Brad Stevens, who's like, the player whisperer. And by all accounts, I've known coaches who have been at practice with the Celtics where a player is basically MFing Brad Stevens, and he very calmly says something in his ear, and then it stops. So they go, this guy might be a problem for you guys, but we have the program here to handle him. But then I want to ask you about the Indians. I have a question about them.
Do you think for a second that Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens didn't do their homework on the situation? Of course they talked to the guys on the Celtics team. What do you hear about Kyrie Irving? Good guy, bad guy. Is he a cancer? Is he got too much of an ego? And, of course, they're talking to the agents who represent these guys.
Yeah.
They're all doing their due diligence. They're not sitting around just thinking like, oh, gee, well, maybe this is a good move. What do you think? No, and they're not sitting around listening to talk shows. They're doing their homework by talking to people within that inner sanctum of the NBA saying, what's wrong here? Why is this guy such a hothead? Does he have any health problems? Are there legal concerns we don't know about? I mean, all this stuff goes to this. When I was the Indians and they're looking at trading ball players, that's exactly what they were doing. They were talking to agents because agents don't want to basically give bad information because the next time one of their players comes up for a contract renewal, the GM's going to say to them, you give me bad dope on Noah Savage, so I'm not going to give you a break on this guy's contract because you screwed me last time. That's exactly what goes on. They're all talking. At the end of the day, the team president, the general manager, the coach, they all sit in a room, like a conference room, and they said, okay, let's all fit the pieces of the puzzle together. What do you think?
Not like a sauna? That's how I picture it. They're all in the sauna together
you watch too much
steam.
You watch too much HBO. It doesn't work that way. This is real money, and the owner wants real decisions coming from his GM, who makes a lot of money, and from the head coach.
So give me a real-life example of something you saw on the Indians that maybe didn't make it into the media, but that was like a big storyline. You have to name names, but two players who hated each other or egos.
One day, I'll give you two stories, Noah. One day I just was playing, John Hart was the general manager. He's now the president of the Atlanta Braves. John Hart's a brilliant guy and a good guy. And one day we went to play a round of tennis. And on the way back from the tennis courts, we're listening to the local sports radio in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. A guy came on in the afternoon, and he says, I have inside information. I'm going to tell you right now that the Indians are in direct talks with the Houston Astros, and they're going to trade, I don't know who it was, maybe Sandy Alomar or somebody, or Albert Bell. And they're going to trade him directly for Houston for this guy, and this guy. And I'm sitting in the car, Hart is driving.
Yeah.
And I listened to this. He listens to it. I said, John, is this really happening? He looked at me and he said, Rick, trust me, I don't know what these guys are doing. Maybe they're just trying to drum up some ratings or get people to call in, but I'm the guy who makes the call on these trades, and I would never do something that stupid.
Right.
And it was true. And that trade never took place. It was just somebody in radio trying to make noise.
Right.
And on the other hand, I'll tell you a story which I heard from, and I have to be careful with names here, but there was one of the managers during the tenure of the Indians, good guy, smart guy. There were a trade went down where the Indians traded a starting ball player, a good player, to another team for a player who I thought wasn't as good as our guy. So I remember talking to the manager in his office one afternoon. I said, why did they trade so-and-so for so-and-so? I'm curious. And the manager looked around, closed the door, and he said, because the guy we traded was having an affair with one of with the starting pitcher's wife.
It's real life Dorn from Major League.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
It was before Major League was made. But they got rid of him because of that. And, of course, the media never heard anything about this. They just said, well, the guy, our guy's had some injury issues, or he was slumping, or he's put some weight on, or whatever reason they came up with.
Right.
But the fact had nothing to do. But the manager and the GM said, we can't have this civil war because the pitcher came to us, our star pitcher, and said, either he goes or I go.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Wow.
And that does happen routinely.
What about when you hear about selfishness in baseball? Can you explain how someone can be selfish in baseball? It doesn't make sense to the untrained basketball eye. Because to me, it's like you're up there, you're trying to hit the ball.
Yeah, I'm not sure how.
You hear about these guys. Oh, well, he's a bad locker room guy. He's selfish. Like people just think he's a jerk. I mean, who cares?
It's more obvious in basketball than baseball. But I know for years you have a guy who's a pretty good hitter, like your number 3 hitter, and sometime like late July it starts getting really hot, and the guy's hitting about 310, 315. And suddenly he says, I got a bit of a twinge in my back.
Right.
Or my hamstring feels tight today. And for the next 2 weeks, he takes a midsummer break vacation.
Yeah.
His batting average is still 315. He's still an all-star.
Right.
And the team could really use him. But you know what? He's taking a 2-week hiatus just because he's got a twinge in his back, which can't be diagnosed.
Okay.
That does happen.
And people kind of go, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, you say, I got my lat hurts. I got a lat muscle pulled. And it's going to take how long? 2-3 months. 2-3 months for a lat muscle. I mean, are you serious? I mean, that's why. I mean,
Yeah, I think I've been out for about 2 years with a lat muscle personally. But
prove my point. So.
All right, we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back. We're back, old school, new school, still a sponsorless and listenerless podcast. We basically could do this over the phone, Rick.
And still no national anthem.
No anthem, no theme song.
All right, now let's get into this because I'm an old school guy.
Yeah.
When I grew up.
But we both share, before you say that, we both share, this is one of the things we share in common. Which is a deep, deep-seated hatred of both basketball officials and baseball umpires. Is that true?
No, I don't hate baseball umpires or basketball refs, but I will say this.
Okay.
That when I grew up, I mean, the umpires, you became an umpire because either you were totally without any feeling, you were totally...
you couldn't talk to women. You had to put all that frustration somewhere and ruin my life as a ref.
Wait a minute. All I'm telling you is that umpires had extraordinarily thick skin, like elephants.
Okay.
So you could yell and scream. People came to the ballpark and yelled at screen umpires, and you're blind, and punch a hole in that mask, and so on and so forth. And the fact of the matter is, umpires never even paid attention to any of this.
Right.
Because they were professionals. They
Yeah.
expected you were going to yell and scream at them. You blew that call, you're terrible. And when I played in the minors, first of all, the umpires knew that's how they were going to be treated. And there was an understood...
By the fans.
And by the players.
All right, so did you talk to umpires?
Yes, of course. They became friends of mine. Or most of them did. Because most of the time you weren't angry at them. But if they made a call, either balls and strikes or a play in the field, and you didn't agree with them, you were able to say, come on, Noah, are you kidding me?
Right.
He was out by 3 feet. I had him dead to rights. Or, that pitch was a foot outside. And they will let you have a good say for 30 seconds.
Right.
Except you could say anything you wanted, except you could not use profanity.
Right.
As soon as you used any word of profanity, any obscenity, that was your ticket out of the ball game.
Right.
And that's how it was. So you could say, oh, my gosh, you're such a jerk. You're such a dunce. You're an idiot. You're horrible, whatever.
Yeah.
But as soon as you cross that line, that's when you got the heave-ho. And
Well,
I will tell you, so here we have a situation now with this guy Hernandez, who's been an umpire for close to 25 years.
Right.
And Ian Kinsler of the Tigers, has a terrible at-bat. And you can see on YouTube the balls and strikes in that at-bat. And Hernandez, in the underground of baseball, is not considered to be a very good umpire.
Right.
Yes, he's worked a couple of World Series, but he's not.
Now, are you saying you can watch the at-bat and say, these calls are outrageous?
Yes.
Okay, so Kinsler's right.
So Kinsler's right. And when he says after the game, he says,
this guy needs to find a new profession.
yes, yes. And he wasn't screaming profanities. He was just saying, I think the guy ought to look for a new line of work.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's his opinion. He got fined a lot of money for saying that. Major League Baseball Umpires Association said, what? Not only do you have to fine him, you have to suspend him.
Right.
Oh, come on. So now they're going to band together and wear these wristbands to protest this?
So they wore the wristbands for a little bit, and then basically Major League Baseball said...
The commissioner said, you're not doing this anymore.
Well, they said that you're in violation of our collective bargaining agreement. You have no rights to protest like this.
I mean, come on.
So
really?
it ended pretty quickly, but I hear your point, which is, my own experience with refs was that they were the worst. I hated all of them. I had a supercut made of me talking to refs by my coach in college senior year, and he said, we talked about this. Like, man to man, you said you were going to stop talking to the refs, and here's 15, of you talking to them. But I don't think, you can be in that profession if you're sensitive, which I think is your point, right?
Yes. I mean, look, I also was a head baseball coach for a decade, and I also get in all sorts of shouting matches with
You ever
umpires.
get kicked out of a game?
Oh, of course.
How many?
I got kicked out of a handful of games in the minors and also at the college level. But, there's an understood line where you have to understand that if the umpire has thin skin or is a hypersensitive person, they're the wrong profession. I remember working a game or coaching a game in college, and I was just so furious at the umpire, and I said to him, at my last parting words before he gave me the heave-ho, I said, let me tell you something. I'll make damn sure you don't work any of my games ever again. You're terrible.
And?
I got the heave-ho. Literally the next day.
And he never worked again.
The next day, we had a playoff game, and guess who shows up to work the plate? The same umpire. He had a big laugh, but they understand that. They understand that's what they're getting involved in. There's no protest. There's no. Oh, you hurt my feelings, or we're going to band together. No, that is silly. That is new school nonsense. And I give.
All right, so I got a ref story for you.
All right.
So my senior year in college, we're playing a preseason scrimmage, and I go down the lane and they call a charge on me, and it's a scrimmage, so I don't think you can even foul out. And I yell out, "Oh, you got to give this guy an Oscar for that one." And my coach, who now is his second week being with me or so, he starts laughing. His assistants start laughing. The whole bench starts laughing. And then legitimately the next 7 times I had the basketball, whether I was at half court, 3-point line, not driving, just on the perimeter dribbling around, there was an offensive foul call to me, 7 in a row. And then my coach said, that was pretty funny what you said, but, you got to shut up because obviously this guy, had a, I would throw a chest pass and they'd go, that's an offensive foul right there.
Well, particularly in a preseason game when they know that this doesn't count, they're going to try and sort of, let you know who's the boss. But come on. I find over the years that the coaches, the Bobby Knights, if they try to intimidate referees or
and they get more calls.
No, they don't.
No, they do. Believe me.
No,
I've been studying this on air for about 5 years.
It works against them.
You know who got the most calls? Danny Hurley, Mike Rice, the yellers and the screamers and the intimidators, and the celebrities, like your boy Coach K. He gets all the calls.
All right, I think we'll stop there because, quite frankly, you are wrong.
Hold on. We're going to take a quick break real quick. And we're back. Old school, new school.
All right, let's get into this, Noah, because you know how I feel about this. It was such a lovely sort of...
Did you switch your medication? Like, you've been really fired up lately, and I like it.
My 5 or 6 cups of coffee.
Yeah. What's going on? Did you start drinking an espresso?
So it was a lovely Norman Rockwell moment. You probably don't know who Norman Rockwell is, but you can look it up in Google.
Boxer?
Yeah, thanks. Jeez. Okay. So here we have the Pittsburgh Pirates and the St. Louis Cardinals play in front of this makeshift ballpark on ESPN in front of 2,000 people. And they're going to get up after the game and shake hands with each other. And isn't that a lovely thought and sentiment?
Yeah, it is. What's the matter with that?
There's nothing wrong with that, but the fact is the way Major League Baseball and ESPN and Little League Baseball portrayed this is, why don't ball players do this more often? Well, the fact of the matter is the ball players are all members of the same union, okay? Most of them know each other for years. Either they played high school ball or college ball together, or minor leagues, or they were traded from one team to another. They all know each other. So the idea of going after a game and shaking hands, they're already talking to each other throughout the game.
Yeah.
They're talking. People don't even know this. They think the Red Sox and the Yankees really are hated, bitter rivals. They aren't. After a Red Sox-Yankees game, most of the guys...
They are a rival.
Yeah, but not
But
like...
they don't dislike each other personally.
That's my point, is that the way the media makes
Yeah, but
it
other
out,
sports shake hands.
the point
What
is,
do the quarterbacks do after the Super Bowl?
Exactly. So what? But the point is...
So why not in baseball?
Because it's just a meaningless gesture, because most teams play each other 3 or 4 times in a row. So
Listen,
maybe if you want, after the 4th game of the series, they can say, hey, goodbye, see you around, we'll see you in a month or so.
Yeah.
But so what? They isn't like that. Baseball is not like you play in football 17 games a year and you shake hands and move on. No, it isn't like that. Ball players, by the way, talk to each other throughout the game, in the dugout. They go back and forth in the clubhouse. It's just ridiculous.
I think the one thing you said in that long and frankly quite horrific rant was that because they play a series.
Yes.
So I think the good compromise is at the end of the series, the last game, 3rd game, 4th game, you shake hands.
Fine. Have a nice day.
Because it is ridiculous to say, like, let's shake hands now, and then we'll see you tomorrow at noon, and we'll shake hands then, and then the next night at 6, we'll shake hands then.
Yeah, exactly.
Then all you're doing is shaking hands, pretty much.
Exactly my point. Okay? And by the way, in hockey, which is really a war, hockey players only
do they shake hands?
Only in the Stanley Cup. They don't do it during the regular season.
Yeah, they really do hate each other.
Yes.
I think. Although,
But man, I pounded somebody in the head after a while. Oh, yeah, I really like this guy.
I read a story about 2 guys, both went to Princeton, knew each other, and they were both the enforcer for each other's teams in the NHL, and they had to fight.
Yeah. So
how great is that? Yeah. I have so many of my good friends I want to punch in the face that
why don't you just go off
we should have played hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you can do it in the confines of sport.
Now, speaking of hockey and Canada,
I'm
going to throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
The best North American college basketball team you have never heard of is a team called Carleton College in Canada.
Yep.
Every year in this time of year, because the American teams won't play them during the regular season.
Okay.
So they stack up in the course of August and September, and they not only go out and beat American division or top 20 teams, but they crush them.
Right.
They just, so far this year, Carleton, which has been the dominant team in Canada for 10 years now, they have beaten Alabama. Not Alabama like some branch campus,
right?
But Alabama, Tuscaloosa, and handily. They beat Vanderbilt not once but twice. They just beat Northern Colorado. They just beat UNH by 40 points,
right?
And it's going to continue. And nobody.
But why doesn't anybody know?
That's my point. I have
so
no idea.
maybe that's one of our goals in the show.
I think
Tell people about Carleton College.
The Ravens are led by a guy named Dave Smart, who's a brilliant coach.
Okay.
Who makes a fraction of what your buddies like Calipari.
Then he's not that smart, right? He should be coaching the Celtics in a couple of years.
Well, he probably will be. But I'm just telling you, we'll come back to Carleton during the course of these shows, and you'll say,
and
hey,
let me tell you something. I'm not having a guest on until we have that guy Dave Smith on. Is that his name?
Dave Smart.
Dave Smart is going to be our first guest. Mark my words. So everybody go Google Carleton College. Let me know if it's real, because I hear about it every 6 months and I've never seen anything about it.
They're for real.
And you can send us an email about it at oldschoolnewschool@gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to Old School New School.